Chileans have taken to the streets of the capital Santiago to demand the resignation of Sebastián Piñera, where they once again face police repression. The United States has officially surpassed the 250,000 COVID-19 related fatalities. Iraq and Saudi Arabia border in Arar reopened this Wednesday after 30 years of closure. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. And we begin in Chile, where people have taken to the streets of the capital, Santiago, to demand the resignation of President Sebastián Piñera, where they once again face police repression. Demonstrators are demanding the approval of the bill allowing for the withdrawal of 10% of private pension funds in order to face the ongoing economic crisis, which Piñera has said he will block. Those mobilizing stress that the president has refused to respond to the legitimate demands and needs of the Chilean people in the midst of the crisis sparked by the COVID-19 pandemic. They were met by riot police a block away from the presidential palace, who deployed 42 water cannon vehicles to disperse them. And in the midst of the anti-government protests in Chile, police entered a children's home in a poor neighborhood in the central city of Talcahuano, where they shot at children, injuring at least 2. According to reports, the police supposedly entered the home to take away a child suffering a psychotic episode. On witnessing the events, some of the children began shouting and threw stones at the officers, who responded with gunfire. The Chilean ombudsperson for children, Patricia Muñoz, denounced the acts, stressing that they presented a completely unjustified and excessive use of force against vulnerable children and adolescents in a center where they should be safe and protected by the state. And Chilean lawmakers Camila Vallejo and Daniel Núñez of the Chilean Communist Party have called for the Chamber of Deputies to suspend the debate of the budget in order to address the attacks on the children's home by police forces. Meanwhile, officials of the Investigations Police of Chile are said to be heading to home to investigate the events. This Wednesday, the presidential candidate for the Union for Hope coalition, Andrés Araúz, speaking during the press conference, rejected the decision of the Electoral Disputes Tribunal to exclude him and his running mate from participating in the elections scheduled for February 7, 2021.
The running mates for the Union for Hope are still not confirmed as candidates for the presidency and vice presidency of the Republic of Ecuador. The Electoral Disputes Tribunal has made various moves and has not even accepted the paperwork, the last challenge that has been presented against our candidacy. This delay is unjustified. It does not make any sense that the Electoral Disputes Tribunal has not yet accepted our candidacy.
Araúz stressed that the measure is part of a strategy of the Electoral Disputes Tribunal to undermine the presidential and vice presidential nominees of the Union for Hope in the upcoming elections.
If we add to the efforts the attempts to exclude the possibility of defending ourselves through our common attorney from the alliance we represent, we would be left defenseless. That is the move they want to make, so that the running mates for the Union for Hope cannot participate in the elections.
Peruvian President Francisco Sagasti swore in a new cabinet this Wednesday, one day after assuming office and being tasked with resolving the country's crippling political crisis. Sagasti appointed a constitutional lawyer to be prime minister as the government seeks an end to the widespread and angry protests against the country's corrupt political crisis. The new president also appointed Violeta Bermúdez, a legal expert on vulnerable populations and gender politics, to head the cabinet for 18 ministers, with Waldo Mendoza, an economist with a background in tax oversight, to oversee the economy portfolio. The new government was formed after a turbulent week that saw the departure of 2 presidents and large-scale marches in the streets that were marked by the death of 2 young protesters. And women have taken to the streets in Argentine capital, Buenos Aires, to celebrate the announcement by President Alberto Fernandez on Tuesday that he was bringing a new bill on legalizing abortion to Congress. Argentina's parliament will once again debate a bill on the legal termination of pregnancy, marking a triumph for the Green Scarf campaign, which has garnered international support and in fulfillment of an electoral pledge made by President Fernandez. In a country with a Catholic majority and the birthplace of Pope Francis, the first historic initiative to legalize abortion was discussed in Congress in 2018 and approved by the lawmakers but narrowly rejected by the Senate. In a video broadcast on Tuesday on his Twitter account, President Fernandez announced the sending of the text to Congress and also said the goal was to ensure that all women have access to the right to comprehensive health care.
To hear Alberto present the bill and that he has heard our demands and the demands of women who have been calling for this many years, it's pure emotion and pride. I have great optimism that this project is going to be approved for the whole movement of women and diverse groups that we have been pushing for a very long time. We have been participating in the campaign for 15 years, and I believe that this year is finally going to be law. For us, besides a recognition of the militant struggle, the feminist wave in our streets is also about deciding about our bodies, and the reality is that today we're in the streets asking for abortion to be legal in Argentina.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United States has officially surpassed the 250,000 COVID-19 related fatalities. The number of people in hospitals with COVID-19 in the US has doubled in the past month and set new records every day this week, which has triggered in turn the creation of patient treatment areas in chapels, cafeterias, waiting rooms, hallways, even in parked garages, while doctors raise their voice to plead for the government's support. The U.S. Treasury Department announced new measures against Iran, freezing U.S. assets and generally barring Americans from doing business with the Middle East country. Washington has blacklisted a foundation controlled by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In addition, the U.S. State Department designated 2 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) officials, accusing them of involvement in the killing of nearly 150 people in the city of Nashahar during last year's crackdown. As Italy faces a second wave of the novel coronavirus, intensive care units at the Casal Palocco Clinical Institute in the capital Rome are under mounting pressure.
At the moment, all the beds are full. We have no more room available. What saves us is that there is a rather rapid turnover, and this turnover has made possible, on the one hand, thanks to the nature and development of this new wave, which is slightly different from the first one. On the other hand, thanks to the fact that there are legal provisions and procedures that have diversified.
A French government spokesperson said Wednesday that the nation is still far from returning to normality, adding that the country has not won the battle against the COVID-19 epidemic.
What is being discussed at the moment, though about work done and if necessary announced, is that there may be an adjustment to the lockdown from December 1st or the days around it. But we are still far from the confinement. We are even far from it. There is talk of a possible adaptation of the lockdown from December 1st if the health situation allows us to do so. I insisted during my introductory speech, and I'll do it again, on the fact that we haven't won the battle and the fact that to relax our efforts today by having or giving the feeling that this battle is behind us would be dangerous for the health situation of our country and therefore for the safety of the French.
A new French bill drafted in the aftermath of a gruesome beheading of a teacher last month makes it a crime to intimidate public servants on religion ground. The legislative piece will be presented before the cabinet on December the 9th, also makes it an offense to share the personal information of a person in a way that allows them to be identified or located by people who want to harm them. President Emmanuel Macron's government has clamped down on what it calls radical Islam, following the murder of Samuel Paty, who was the target of a vicious online smear campaign for showing his students' cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad in a class of free speech. Authorities in Spain moved around 200 migrants from the saturated camp of Arguineguin to a new holding camp in the Canary Islands. On the ground said that they can't adequately care for the thousands of migrants who have arrived by boat in recent weeks. The new camp is the second establishment for migrants in the archipelago, and it will be set up on grounds provided by the military at Barranco Seco. However, officials on the ground say they can't adequately care for the thousands of migrants who have arrived by boat in recent weeks, raising the concern of humanitarian organizations.
It's indescribable. We haven't seen anything like this in the Canary Islands for a long time. It's an untenable situation that these people have just come out of, and now they find themselves on the streets, and it's a consequence of the decision that the central government take. We need perfect coordination between the ministries in order to be able to deal with this situation that the archipelago is experiencing at the moment, that this decision does not generate any certainty about how things are being done.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Iraq and Saudi Arabia borders in Arar reopened this Wednesday after 30 years of closure. The decision was taken after diplomatic relations between both countries resumed followed by discussions with Baghdad since 2017, nearly 14 years after the fall of Iraqi dictator in 2003. The Arar border will now open for transportation of goods and people for the first time since 1990, after the two countries severed ties following former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. Israel launched air raids against 8 alleged Iranian targets in Syria on Wednesday, causing the death of 3 soldiers and injuring at least 4 more. According to a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces, the attacks on Syrian soil extended from the border area to the outskirts of Damascus, and among the alleged targets was a military base at the Damascus International Airport, which Israel claims is a secret military installation hosting Iranian forces. Syrian forces have denied Iranians or Lebanese were among the casualties. Israel has stepped up attacks on what it says are Iranian-linked targets in Syria in recent years. But Wednesday attacks struck a far wider range on targets than usual, and the Israeli military was more forthcoming about the details than in the past, suggesting a clear aim to send a public message that it will pursue its policy of striking across the border despite US President Donald Trump's election defeat. After the arrival of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Palestinian territory, hundreds of citizens came out to protest against the official near the Psagot warehouse in the West Bank. During the protest, villagers and activists shouted slogans against the U.S. Secretary and expressed their rejection for the visit. Pompeo, who headed the Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories on Wednesday, is on a tour of Europe and the Middle East as part of the farewell visit as Trump administration's top diplomat. For his part, Palestinian leaders in the Gaza Strip and West Bank say they are waiting for a statement from President-elect of the United States, Joe Biden, on the conflict between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. In Bangkok, Thailand, riot police used water cannons and tear gas against pro-democracy protesters gathered near parliament. Thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators remained gathered Wednesday evening in the center of Bangkok, the Thai capital, in the aftermath of clashes with the police. The rally gathered some 20,000 demonstrators in the early evening, according to an estimate by Agence France Presse. Demonstrators, some wearing shields, helmets and gas masks, were massed in front of the police, also in the police headquarters, protected by dump trucks, concrete blocks and barbed wire. Armenians are rushing to pack up their belongings and leave the Nagorno-Karabakh region ahead of the handover of the territory to Azerbaijan. The move follows a Russia-brokered deal in which Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh must return the Akdam, Kalbarkar and Lachin districts to Azerbaijan, starting on November the 20th with a completion deadline of December the 1st. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday defended the ceasefire deal he brokered between Azerbaijan and Armenia after France called for him to fix ambiguities in the text. Putin said the deal laid the basis for long-term normalization for the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region.
There was an announcement made that we had to leave Normaraga and the neighboring village within 2 days. We wanted to build a sauna, kitchen and other things, but now I had to dismantle everything. And I'll burn down the house with everything I own when I leave. This is my garden. I do not know what we will do tomorrow. It probably won't be mine tomorrow.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.